Welcome, everybody. I'm going to hand it over to our state president, AARP Maine State President, Pat Pinto.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here on this lovely Thursday afternoon. And I'm very excited to be doing this with Senator Vitelli and Senator Stewart. So again, the purpose of this is that we wanted to, since this bill got voted out of committee ought to pass, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk a little bit about it with some of the people in the press. So I'm particularly excited about LD 1622 because as a former, I guess I have to introduce myself first. I am the AARP Maine State President. And what I started to say is that I'm also a former business owner. And I'm so excited about this legislation because I know that Maine businesses, it's a great way for Maine business owners who care, and most of them do very much, about their employees and providing a way that they can help them to save. So this legislation, again, presents an easy solution to that. And again, it's hitting a need that's so important these days, especially with the pandemic. The pandemic has hit small businesses very hard, and it has hit women very hard, many women who have lost their jobs. And it's really kind of mind-boggling to me when you realize that the average household has a average household who is close to retirement has about $14,500 saved for retirement. And clearly that's not enough. Again, I have to say, even though I was a business owner, I was a bit surprised when I retired to realize how small my Social Security benefits were going to be, and that my benefits were being taxed. So we really wanted, so what's great about this legislation is that employees can take control of their future. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds about this. I think Senator Vitelli will be talking more about it. But, and I think another thing, someone said this to me and it's struck by it, which is that the current gender pay gap for women is going to be translating to becoming a retirement wealth gap. So again, this provides an important way for people of all ages to save for retirement. And one last fact I want to just throw in, because I think it's so important, is to know that almost 10% of Maine women who are 65 plus fall below the poverty line now. So I think it's up to all of us as citizens and these great legislators to help change that. I have also been struck by how many of the legislators are also small businesses. So again, without further ado, let me introduce Senator Vitelli, who will talk to you more about 1622.
Thank you very much, Pat, and thank all of you for being here today. I am delighted that we're in this position right now. LD 1622, the Work and Save bill, as it's commonly known, is something that I've been working on for the last 3 sessions that since I've been in the state Senate, which is for 3 sessions. So this is just feeling like a really important moment that we've arrived at. I also want to really thank my colleague, Senator Trey Stewart, for joining me in this. It's really important for those of us who are in the retirement age to share our experience of what it's like to be retired and what it takes to be comfortably retired. I also, though, think about my 2 sons who are probably closer to Trey's age, Senator Stewart's age, and think about their future and how important it is for them to start thinking and planning about their retirement now as well. I want to just say a little bit about the bill in outline form, and then We'll have Trey talk about it from his perspective, and we'll also then try to have time for questions from those of you who are here and comments as well. Let me just say this, though, that I've spent most of my career helping people figure out what to do with their lives, with their careers, to plan for their future. And one of the things that I learned early on is that getting a hold of one's financial life is a real challenge for many of us. I include myself in that. You know, we're so busy with so many other aspects of our life that sometimes we forget to pay attention to whether we have money set aside for an emergency, let alone for our retirement. And how difficult it is for some people to even take those first steps in opening up a savings account, perhaps. And it's not because people don't want to, but basic human nature is such that every time you have to make that decision, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, every month, to set aside money into a savings account or a retirement account, that's a decision point. And all kinds of things can get in the way of your ability to make that particular decision. So what we've come up with in this bill, in LD 1622, is a program that will make saving for retirement automatic. It will just happen. But it's also something that you can opt out of if your circumstances change. You can decide not to set aside the certain amount every month or every 2 weeks, whatever the time frame is. It's also important that we've set it up so that it's portable. Unlike my own experience, where I had a job with the same employer for many years, many people these days, younger people in particular, move around in jobs one after another until perhaps they land at their final career path. Or many people, certainly ones that I've worked with in Maine, has a lot of them, are self-employed at one point or another as well. So it's important to have a savings, a retirement plan that goes with you, that belongs to you, and that you can take from one job to the next job and continue to build on. And as I said before, it's really important to make it as simple as we can so that there are few decision points along the way. So very simply, what we've proposed with this legislation, and the committee has supported, is to set up the Maine Retirement Savings Program that will be guided by a board, which will be appointed by the governor, approved by the Senate, and they will, with their expertise, lay out a program that begins to implement this very simple savings program using a vehicle known as a Roth IRA, which has certain advantages, and we can get into those details if we want to. Although, trust me, I'm not the financial wizard. So this is another reason I really like this program. It will start slowly. So we'll begin by reaching out to employers with 25 or more employees. And if they do not already offer a retirement savings plan for their employees, they will be asked to make this program available to their employees so that the employees can sign up to have, the way it's structured, 5% of their payroll deposited into a Roth IRA on a regular basis. And they will have the opportunity on a regular basis, and annually is how it's currently structured, to either opt out, or if they don't opt out, to continue to save, so that they'll start to develop that savings habit, even without knowing that that's what they're doing, because it will just happen. What we've seen in some of the research, and thanks to AARP for doing some of this research, is that if a plan, a retirement plan, is structured this way and tied to somebody's employment, people are 70 to 90% more likely to make contributions than if it's not tied to their employment. So having it tied to their work makes sense for that reason. The other thing we see through research is that if it's not automatic, people hesitate to sign up. We've heard from a number of small businesses who've said that I've offered these plans, and even the traditional, or not traditional, but the common 401k type plan to my employees, and only 1 in 4 has taken me up on it. So that's another reason why making this automatic is important. There are so many people in this state who do not have currently the opportunity to save through their employment. This bill, as it moves forward, is creating an incredible opportunity for working Mainers of all ages to start saving, to take their own future in their own hands in a much more secure way. I'm just really delighted to be able to support this bill and have all of you to help me do that. I'll stop now, and I think I turn it over to my colleague, Senator Trey Stewart, to talk about it from his perspective.
Thank you very much, Eloise. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight with you folks at AARP, and Pat, thank you for coordinating this effort. And Eloise, thank you for the invitation to co-sponsor your bill, which is why we're all here. And I have to say that when Senator Vitelli approached me on it, I could tell she was a little bit timid maybe in her ask, being, just a member of the opposite party. There's always maybe that concern that, well, I don't want anything to come off as political. This is just a really common sense approach and a solution to a real problem. And, after I read the bill, I was like, yeah, this is a fantastic idea. And it's really a big deal, I think, for folks that are my age. So I'm 27. I'm the youngest member in the Senate. It was previously the youngest member of the House, and Eloise and I have worked together for about 5 years at this point. And I can tell you that my peers really struggle with this idea that saving is a big deal. I think in some part it's because we've sort of shifted away from the priorities of public education as testing demands have increased on, sort of those core curriculums. So there's usually not as much emphasis on home ec or personal finance or those sort of things. And so the understanding of what finance is, why savings matters, how to balance a checkbook, who uses a checkbook at 27 anymore? These are how things have changed over time, right? And so for my generation, the world looks a little bit different. But I also had the fortunate opportunity to get an MBA in my first term in the legislature. And so I can tell you about the power of compounding interest, and the impact that saving a little when you're my age will have, 20, 30, 40 years down the road on your life. But the problem is if you don't do it, you miss that opportunity. And my generation simply isn't doing it. It's interesting. I was at the barbershop earlier today, and I was just listening to, the chatter and whatnot. And a few of the guys that were there about my age were talking about this, saying, man, I can't afford a down payment on a house, or I can't afford, you name it, right? Like because there's no savings there, right? They could, if they had planned accordingly and, saved up for 4 or 5 years, then that wouldn't be a hurdle for them. But they don't even know where to begin now, right? They want the house, but they don't know where to begin. And nobody's there to guide them through it. Maybe the internet, right? If they can ask the right questions. But the point is, this is going to take a lot of those barriers away. And it's going to really be, I think, a really wonderful equalizer in terms of how we address things like generational poverty, and how we can sort of turn the tide on that, particularly up in my neck of the woods in rural Maine, up in Aroostook County. A program like this has the potential to be a really big deal. And I do think that this is a solution that will change lives. and one that I'm honored to be a part of. And again, I appreciate Senator Vitelli and all the work that she's put into this effort, and certainly your organization's effort to get the word out, underscore why it's important, try to raise some awareness for folks that are my age about why they ought to be participating in things like this, and taking it seriously. And so I'll stop there. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. And thanks for everybody's work on this.
Thank you, Senator. And it's so great to get your perspective on it. And again, it's just helps with highlighting the cause that Senator Vitelli has started for us. And so speaking of younger people, we have two consumer community perspectives of two people we wanted to be able to speak a little bit today, and one of them from your generation, Senator. So Harrison Credo, are you there, Harrison?
I am here, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, yes. Would you like to say a few words for us and tell us why you think this is a great bill yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Pat. So like Pat said, my name is Harrison Kedor, and I live in Westbrook, Maine, and I'm 23 years old, and I'm currently finishing up my education at USM. From a young age, my grandparents always tried to teach me the importance of saving for retirement as soon as I could. I'm a young professional who's just starting out in my professional career. One of the first things I double check when looking for jobs is that they offer a way to save for retirement. If a job does not offer an easy way to start saving, it is less attractive to me. Many Mainers have no access to retirement savings accounts through their employer. In my opinion, that is just one of the reasons why younger Mainers end up in jobs in bigger cities instead of right here in Maine. As a member of Gen Z, I can say that making saving for retirement simple and easy will go a long way to changing the culture of saving among my peers. If it's not automatic, it's probably something we'll forget to do. LD 1622 would finally simplify a process in need of an upgrade, open up a whole new way of saving for today's workers, whether they're 45 or 25. While I might not be able to put away thousands of dollars each year, I can put away hundreds, and that will add up. Did you know that the average working household in Maine only has $2,500 saved for retirement in a savings account? That's not enough for anyone to survive on, let alone retire on. We can and must do better when it comes to helping Mainers of all ages save. Not enough people my age realize the importance of saving for retirement. By creating an easy way for Mainers to save, no matter their job, we will be creating a better future for all Mainers, no matter their age. Let's allow Mainers to set it and forget it and start building financial security that meets them where they're at. Thank you, Senator Vitelli and Senator Stewart, for the support of this bill and this issue. And thank you to ARP Maine for allowing me to share a bit of my story here today.
Thank you, Harrison. So Senator Stewart, see, even somebody slightly younger than you also is a supporter of this bill. So we'd like to have one other community perspective. And so now we're going to switch age-wise to kind of the opposite end, or no disrespect, Carl, because I'm older than you. But now we'd like to invite Carl Bucciatini. Did I say it right, Carl?
Well done.
Okay. Would you tell us a little bit about why you support this bill?
Sure. Thanks, Pat. Yes, I am the other end of the spectrum, I guess. My name is Carl Bucciatini. I live in Green, and I'm happy to say that after 40 years in public education, I'm happily retired. My story begins, it's similar to what Harrison was just talking about, in that I was that young, that 20-something at the beginning of a career, and I had made the assumption that my pension that I was contributing to reasonably well would be enough to sustain me in retirement. I talk about disillusionment when I learned that that was a pretty unlikely outcome. Why the state of Maine sponsored retirement that I provided, I was subscribing to, wouldn't give me enough to live on in retirement. Made no sense. But fortunately, I had some wise counsel, and those who had been through these steps before me taught me well. I was lucky to be an educator. I was eligible for a variety of retirement savings options, all designed to make retirement a little bit more sustainable. But what I learned, though, is that it was up to me to seek out the program and the provider that would meet my needs. And then I'd need to work with my employer to make sure that the payroll department could make sure that my deductions found their way somehow to this magical retirement account. Now, day-to-day finances, I can get that. Senator Stewart, I can even balance a checkbook with the right technology. But the financial wherewithal that required these decisions outpaced my skill set. Thankfully, I muddled through and persevered, and now retirement looks pretty okay. As I moved on in my career, I found myself oftentimes looking at roomfuls of fresh, young, eager educators ready to make their mark in the world. But like I had done years ago, decades ago, as it were, they made the same assumptions about their retirement. They faced the same challenges I did over 40 years ago: the lack of familiarity, inexperience, and the need to work with the employer to set up the deductions. Nothing's changed in over 4 decades. A few weeks ago, I was speaking with a local small business owner, friend of mine, regarding his take on LD 1622. And his first question to me was, why should the business owner do this when these accounts are already available? But before I could answer, he answered his own question by saying he doesn't have a retirement account because it's too confusing to set up. He has neither the time nor the knowledge of where to begin. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? LD 1622 is just a common sense solution to the retirement savings dilemma. It provides a ready-made mechanism by which employers can offer their employees a way to save directly from their paychecks. And we know that works. It's easy, stress-free way to make retirement savings with limited impact on the employer. It provides a vehicle for thousands of Mainers to secure their own future. It's enabling, it's empowering, and it's a win-win. Individuals have a stake in their future, and the state won't need to provide the assistance that retirees need. So I hope everyone will vote in favor. Thank you, Pat. Thank you all for joining us. That's it.
Thank you, Carl. So this has been great. Now I'd like to open it up to see if there are any press people or anyone in the audience, any questions from the others who are sitting in the audience here today.
So Pat, are we using the chat function or?
I was kind of inviting anyone who may want to jump in, or again, if who wanted to speak it, or there are a couple of questions in chat that I could go to, but I just thought I'd see whether anyone wanted to speak. Okay, so Senator Vitale, I'm going to both of you, to both senators. There is a question from the audience listening who is here. And obviously they're a big supporter of this bill. So the question is, what do you think we should be thinking about or talking about the bill in messages to your colleagues who may not be supportive? I'm sure you've both been thinking about this. So let me throw that question out to you.
Great question. Well, I'll kick it off, and then Trey, you can add on to that, because one of the things I did mention in my opening remarks is that this is not just good for workers. I think it's a really great strategy for our employers as well. You know, Maine, we've all been through a really rough year, almost a year and a half now, and we're just beginning to recover. This is something that I think our small businesses in particular can use as a benefit, as a draw for their employees as they start to re-kick-start their businesses and get going again. This is a way that they can compete, in a sense, with some of the larger businesses by offering this very simple way for them to save for their retirement. So it's a win for our small businesses as well as for their employees. And that's one of the things I think that's going to be important to relay to all of our colleagues here in the legislature, is that as we start to rebuild Maine's economy, we're going to need all of our small businesses and their employees to ramp back up again and contribute to that rebuilding of Maine's economy at all levels. So,
I think that's right, and I'd echo Eloise's sentiments there, and I'd say too that I think a big part of the resistance comes from a lack of understanding the scope of the problem. And you folks you've heard the statistics tonight and the facts about what, which should come off as quite startling to everyone, right? In terms of how many folks have little or no savings at all. That can be catastrophic to a family and really lead to a spiral of other events that can really ruin people's lives. And so I think just that general awareness of why this is such a big problem and the fact that things have changed and a recognition of that. My father's and my grandfather's generation, things were different then, right? You had a lot of folks that did have a 30 or 40-year career in the same company. They could rely on a pension or at least some form of guaranteed benefit after they decided to get done working. In what's called the gig economy today, which is really what my generation and the ones after me will continue to sort of work in, those long-term benefits are largely not there, and you're mostly left up to figure those out on your own, which is fine if you have the wherewithal and the knowledge to do that. Most folks don't, though. And I mentioned earlier too that the change in the scope of what you can graduate high school with a guaranteed understanding of, and I don't fault our educators for that at all. I think they're under an incredible amount of stress to keep up with testing requirements, and that's changed too, right? But as that's happened, there's less and less time in a day for other parts of the curriculum that are also important for life. And so I think all of those things, when you combine them together, if folks don't understand what the future is looking like for the next generations, they're not going to understand the urgency to act and the reason why a bill like this is so important. And so I think just underscoring that, and the best way to do that is with your stories, right? Sharing your stories and getting in contact one-on-one with your members in the legislature and explaining why this is so important. And that it's not just, it's not just because millennials aren't motivated or anything like that. It's because the things are different, and it's creating some challenges, and that's fine, but we have to address them head on, and be thoughtful about how we do that.
Great, thank you. Well, so I have an interesting question that someone has put into chat, and I'd like to read this out to you. So to both of you senators, what attracted you to this bill, knowing your rural background and perspective? Are there pieces of this bill that you think serve rural Maine and levels the playing field for all workers, no matter where they work or what they do?
Right, you want to start this one?
Sure. I mean, I think we've covered it to some extent in regards to the benefits of work, right? And that this will be a sort of working towards a universal benefit for most of Maine workers at some point will be covered by one form of savings benefit or another. And certainly, taking advantage of, the benefits that Wall Street can provide, right? And making sure that folks aren't precluded from doing so based on their income level. And I think that that's really important too. I mean, again, when you talk about inequality, accessing that market down in Wall Street can be an intimidating thing, particularly if you're from generational poverty. Of which there's a lot of folks that live in rural Maine, including in my district, who maybe have never had a reason to even know how Wall Street works or how money can work for you, right? And how you put your money to work in smart ways. And so I think that forcing that conversation with some of these folks will go a long way in helping to combat generational poverty so that we can hopefully move on from generational poverty as a state.
And I would just add, thank you for that perspective, Trey. And, you know, in my years of working with small businesses and people all over the state, that's really the foundation of our economy. The entrepreneurs of Maine are today's gig workers, but we've always had people who worked for themselves in a variety of jobs. And we used to call it income patching. You did a little of this and a little of that. So I see this as being a benefit to those who are still engaged in what we consider our traditional industries, farming, fishing, forestry. You know, the people who are independently working in those industries still, even as they are changing, can be some of the people that can benefit from this type of work and save program. It's going to take us a while to get to all of them, you know, to reach that population. And that's why a lot of what you'll see in the details of this bill is, you know, outreach, marketing, collaboration with other state and other entities, you know, and with, you know, banks and traditional financial institutions. You know, we've got to be able to get the word out to reach the population that, as Trey indicated, have never, you know, had reason to or been exposed to the world of investments. So it's going to take a while to get there, but I think ultimately this is something that is well suited to Maine's economy and to the way people in Maine have always managed to put a living together, one way or the other. And it's a good fit for our state.
Right. So there's one last question in the chat, which I think I could answer, and then we'll quickly answer. And then if the two of you want to think about any closing statements, because I don't want to keep people too long on this call. So there was a question around, is there any cost to, is there a cost to employer? And if so, what is it? And so let me just try to quickly answer that, which is there really is no cost. There's no cost really in that they set up for a payroll deduction. So they have a step that they have to take. The only cost is possibly is that in terms of actual payroll deduction for an employee, that there may be pennies that you have to pay to have that deduction occur. And I've been told by payroll service companies myself that that might amount to $7, $8 a year to do that. So, and employers can't contribute and they're not responsible for the investment. So it's a real win-win for both employers and wage earners as well. So let me throw it back to the two of you if you like any last statements. And again, this is being recorded and there are media that it will be watching the recording. Senator Vitelli?
Well, thank you for that, Pat. And you're right. The cost to employers is minimal. And in a survey of employers in Oregon, which is the state that's the farthest along in implementing this type of program, the majority of the employers involved are very happy and are not at all complaining about the challenges they may face in adding another checkbox to their payroll deductions. So it's, you know, it's not just simple for the employee. We try to keep it as simple as we can for the employer as well. Because as Trey was talking about, we want to try to reduce as many of the barriers as there are for people to begin to save. And I would just say that in closing, you know, during this whole year of the pandemic, I worked with a lot of my constituents. I talked to a lot of people in my district, and Trey, I'm sure you did as well, who were really struggling to make it through the loss of a job, the loss of income. And so many of them, in fact, did not have savings set aside of any kind. And I kept thinking to myself, this is why we need this program. I mean, God forbid we get another pandemic, but it certainly highlighted the need for people to build a cushion for themselves for events like this or any other. And it just gave me more sort of conviction, if you will, that this is something that is timely. It's something that we need. It really addresses some real life challenges that people in the state have faced over this last year, and can prevent a lot of the anxiety in the future. So I'm delighted that we're here today where we are with this bill.
Okay. Senator Stewart, any last words that you'd like to add?
I really feel like Eloise covered pretty much everything that I could say. Again, just thank you for the opportunity to work together on this bill, Eloise. Appreciate all the work that you've done, certainly, and we're in the home stretch now on it. So I suspect it'll be a very positive outcome in both the House and the Senate, and look forward to seeing that. And thank you to AARP for your work to help inform folks in Maine as well about this important effort to make sure to contact their members and underscore that important message to them as well.
Thank you.
I'm honored to partner with you. I really thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm so honored that the two of you have done this, and I'll read you one last comment from the audience, because I think it does capture all of our sentiment, which is thank you both for taking this project on and helping Mainers become independent. So thank you all. Thank you all of you who are in the audience, and let's, as someone says, let's get it done.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, AARP volunteers. Appreciate it.